The first time my coworker forgot his wallet at lunch, I didn't think much of it. It happens to everyone. You reach into your pocket. Nothing there. So I covered his meal. He said he'd pay me back later. But then it happened again. And again. And again. 2 months later, I realized something strange. This guy had somehow forgotten his wallet 15 different times. And somehow, I was always the one paying. That's when I decided to track every single dollar. And when I finally showed him the total he owed me, let's just say he was not happy. But interestingly enough, he suddenly started remembering his wallet every single day. Before we get into the story, if you enjoy satisfying Reddit revenge stories where karma catches up to people, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had a coworker who always forgets their wallet at lunch? Because after this story, you might start keeping receipts too. A few years ago, I was working at a small marketing firm in Austin, Texas. Nothing glamorous, just a normal office job. Cubicles, emails, deadlines. And like most workplaces, there was a small group of us who usually grabbed lunch together. 4 or 5 people from the department. It was actually one of the best parts of the workday. Getting out of the office for an hour, talking about random stuff, complaining about projects. Normal coworker bonding. That's where Eric came in. Eric had been with the company longer than me. Mid-30s. Outgoing personality. The kind of guy who always had something funny to say. At first I liked him. Everyone did. But after a few weeks, I started noticing something strange. Every time we went out to lunch, something happened when the check arrived. Eric would suddenly pat his pockets, then check his jacket, then his bag. Then he'd make this exaggerated, confused face. Man, I think I left my wallet at my desk. The first time it happened, I didn't care. I laughed and said, "No problem, I've got it." He promised he'd send me the money later. And a couple days later, he actually did. So no big deal. But then the next week, it happened again. Same routine. Same pocket-checking performance. Same apology. Same promise to pay me back later. At that point, I still didn't think much of it. People forget things. But then it happened again. And again. And again. After a while, I started noticing a pattern. Whenever Eric sat near me at lunch, I somehow ended up covering his meal. Sometimes he'd Venmo me part of it later, like $8. Sometimes nothing. And if I reminded him, he'd always respond the same way. "Oh yeah, man, totally forgot. I'll send it right now." Then nothing. Now here's the important part. I'm not wealthy. At the time, I was making around $52,000 a year, which sounds decent. Until you live in an expensive city. Rent, groceries, gas, bills. That stuff adds up fast. Buying someone else's lunch every once in a while? Fine. But twice a week? That starts to hurt. After about 6 weeks of this, I began feeling something strange every time we went out to lunch. Not anger exactly. More like a quiet frustration. That uncomfortable moment when the bill arrives and you already know what's about to happen. Eric reaches into his pocket. Pause. Confused expression. Man, I swear I had my wallet this morning. And everyone else just sits there awkwardly, looking at each other, waiting for someone to solve the situation. Most of the time, that someone was me. Eventually, I pulled Eric aside one afternoon. I kept it friendly. "Hey man, you still owe me for lunch on Tuesday." He smiled. "Oh, yeah dude, my bad. I'll send it right now." He even pulled out his phone, tapped a few things, then put the phone away. And guess what? The payment never came. That was the moment something finally clicked in my brain. This wasn't an accident. This was a system. Eric had figured out that if he forgot his wallet enough times, someone else would pay. And apparently that someone was me. So I decided to do something simple. I started tracking everything. Every lunch, every payment, every time I covered his meal. I entered it all into a budgeting app on my phone. Date, restaurant, amount. At first it was just curiosity. But after 2 months, I opened the app and looked at the total. And I just stared at the number. $186. Almost $200 on someone else's lunches. That's when I realized something. Eric probably thought nobody was paying attention. So I decided to show him that someone was. One afternoon, I opened the app and exported the entire list. Every date, every dollar. Then I took a screenshot and sent it to him on Slack, along with one simple message. Hey, looks like you owe me this. That's it. No insults. No accusations. Just a list. Eric replied almost immediately, and he was furious. Not embarrassed. Not apologetic. Angry. He started typing messages about how weird it was to track something like that. How petty are you? It's just lunch money. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed back one sentence. If it's just lunch money, you can Venmo me the $186 and we're good. There was a long pause. Eventually my phone buzzed. Eric had sent $50. Then another message. That's all I'm paying. Some of those are probably wrong. I almost laughed because they weren't wrong. I had the receipts. But I didn't argue. Instead, I decided to handle things a different way. The next time our group went out for lunch, the moment the bill arrived, Eric started his usual routine, patting his pockets, checking his jacket. Then he said the familiar line, "Man, I think I left my wallet at my desk." Before anyone else could react, I pulled out my phone, opened the list, and said loudly enough for the table to hear, "No worries. I'll just add it to the previous list." Suddenly, the entire table went quiet. Eric froze. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Then something amazing happened. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. Actually, never mind. Found it. The table erupted in laughter. And from that day forward, Eric has remembered his wallet. Every single time. 8 lunches in a row now. No pocket-checking routine. No fake confusion. No awkward moments. He barely talks to me anymore. But honestly, that's fine. Because at least I'm not funding his burrito habit anymore. Watching him suddenly remember his wallet that day felt incredibly satisfying. Not because I wanted to embarrass him, but because the game was finally over. For months, he assumed nobody noticed what he was doing. But the moment he realized someone had been keeping track, the behavior stopped immediately. Funny how that works. Looking back, the situation taught me something simple. Some people will take advantage of kindness until they realize someone is paying attention. Sometimes you don't need revenge. Sometimes you just need receipts. If you enjoyed this story and love hearing about petty revenge and workplace karma, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what's the most annoying thing a coworker has ever done to you? Because something tells me Eric isn't the only person who's tried this trick.